The Buick Enclave took a big styling leap for the 2025 model year, using the Wildcat EV concept as inspiration, and wow, did it work. Buick also elegantly modernized the interior, but the improvements under the hood could be a different story. Let's take a closer look. Looking at the front of the car, obviously this is a big departure from the outgoing model. First thing you'll notice is that Buick now proudly puts the Buick emblem right on the hood, right on the body. That is true of all Buick models now. And from there, you have this nice slope into the front fascia, which has this big and broad grille. And this also has a lot of texture into it. You know, it's three-dimensional. You've got these nice little chrome accents right here, and this like kind of basket weave pattern going throughout. And it's also a trapezoidal shape as you go down. Then you have gloss black at the base, more body color for the bumper, and then more black for all the sensors up here, and then a piece of chrome on the lower bumper right here. I think it's all executed really well. I'm really happy with what we see here. I also like this chrome that comes out off the side of the grille, extends to where the headlights are, adds width to this car. And then you see these very long and slender lamps up here, up top, and then the main bulbs down here stacked vertically. This is all LED up front here, and I think it's a sharp design, and it's definitely following the trend as well, where you see a slim, narrow, more squint-eyed look up top, and then additional beams down low. The hood itself actually functions as the base of a fender flare, almost right at the top, with this interesting cut off of the side that blends into the A-pillar. Then you have a couple of more interesting cuts as you go in. The hood actually insets down a little bit as you go to the center. But I'm definitely more curious to show you what's underneath it. Well, there you have it. Your turbocharged 2.5 liter 4-cylinder engine, 328 horsepower, 326 pound-feet of torque. It is transversely mounted or side to side like that. This is inherently a front engine, front wheel drive platform, although this particular car does have all-wheel drive. The center line of the front axle is pretty far back under the hood, kind of in line with the middle of this coolant overflow tank. So that puts it behind much of the shroud, which means much of the engine is actually ahead of the axle center line. But because of its all-wheel drive system, that does help balance the front and rear chassis out a little bit. However, this is just inherently pretty heavy. And to that end, the strut tower brace is actually behind. You can see it's basically tucked underneath the firewall almost. One little side benefit of that, there's kind of like a built-in strut tower brace right there. So that does add a little bit of structure to the front. Battery's nice and easy to see right here. Interesting that the coolant overflow tank is actually behind it. Here's your air box right here, and then tubing that flows around. The turbocharger is actually behind it right there. Now, at the top, I kind of mentioned that it's an improvement. The outgoing engine in the Buick Enclave was a naturally aspirated 3.6 liter V6, 310 horsepower, 266 pound-feet of torque. So you do get more power and a lot more torque with this turbocharged 2.5 liter 4-cylinder engine, but a lot of people do prefer the feel of a naturally aspirated engine, and clearly there's plenty of room for a naturally aspirated V6 in here. So I have a feeling that it was actually the increased emission standards that was kind of nudging the 3.6 liter V6 out, but you do also get more power and critically more torque. So there are real benefits to getting the turbocharged engine. Finally, windshield washer fluid is really easy to get to. It's right here in the driver's side corner right here. Looking at the Enclave in profile, this is the least amount of change you get over the outgoing generation. It's still a perfectly clean shape, and it is a very long shape as well. And it's also a nice color. Buick calls it Moonstone Gray Metallic Paint. It is a standard color, and it is one of several standard colors offered on the Avenir Enclave. I appreciate seeing that. And while it is generally similar, Buick did include a lot of nice little details for this Avenir trimmed SUV. First of all, It tells you it's an Avenir right here beneath the side view mirror cover on the door. You do have two-tone for the side view mirror, body color on top, gloss black beneath that, and you can easily see one of the several cameras mounted on this car. I do think Buick did a nice job to give you a little bit of a fender flare and have it just come straight down, and you still have this nice body color shape all the way down to the wheel well. There's not any black plastic or anything like that. You do get a nice polished metal for the window trim right here, and then some gloss black for the B pillar, but then the C and D pillar are a little bit more subtly integrated into the car. The door handles themselves are also two-tone. You have body color right here, but then chrome around here. And I do also like this brushed aluminum roof rail as well. And you do have a couple of interesting character lines. You have a subtle one that starts here, goes right through the front and rear door handles before it ends. And then you have another one that starts above the rear door handle and kind of blends and forms the top of the rear fender flare right here. And that is a pretty subtle flare, but I think, again, executed well. And while we're back here, you can see a bit of the taillight right here, but nothing too ostentatious. And you do have another little signal light right here. The body does kind of narrow a little bit as you go low to give it a just tiny bit more athletic feel. And then you get this nice piece of chrome towards the bottom of the cowl. Again, I think it's a nice touch. One thing about this SUV is it doesn't feel cramped or anything like that. The shape has time to just kind of flow out. And one of the reasons for that is that this thing is very, very long. The 2025 Buick Enclave is longer, wider, and taller than the outgoing model. This is roughly the same length as a Mercedes-Benz S-Class. I will go ahead and put the dimensions up on the screen so you can check those out. You can see that it is very long and indeed quite wide as well. And I'll let you know that I have more information in the description. One other neat trick about the Avenir is as you approach it, it will light up. It will give you the interior lights and the interior ambient lights as you approach the car. It's a nice little welcome to your Buick kind of a thing. It's pretty much impossible to see in the middle of the day. Here, let me show it to you at night. You are looking at a 22-inch wheel, which is standard for the Avenir edition of the Enclave. You can in fact get 22-inch wheels on all three trims, preferred, sport touring, and this Avenir, but this is the only trim where it's standard. Standard wheel on the other trims are 20-inch wheels. And even though this is a 22, you do actually get a little bit of sidewall here. Not much, relatively speaking, but this is a 45 series tire. And it all looks completely normal until you look at the brake discs and see how small they are by comparison. I do think it is a perfectly elegant design, and it doesn't even look too terribly difficult to clean in a relative sense anyway. And yes, this is of course a square setup. The wheel and tire in back is the same size as what's in front. Looking at the car from the back, I believe this is the easiest spot to visually see just how wide this thing is. And I think it's designed well here as well. First of all, the taillights run straight across the width of the car. And again, these are LED lights. And Buick was tasteful about not being too ostentatious with this roof-mounted spoiler. And you do have a fairly vertically mounted rear windshield right here. And it might be difficult to see here, but we do actually have a camera mounted up here and then another camera mounted right here. And both of them have little nozzles to spray them clean if you need to. I do also like that just below the taillights, we have this chrome element right here that again goes the width of the vehicle. And I'm happy that Buick kept the lettering here and here a reasonable size. It's not too ostentatious, and this is one subtle little hint that this is indeed an all-wheel drive car. You do have a trailer hitch. It is mounted right here when you get the towing package, and there is a little bit of just unnecessariness right here with these rather loud dual exhaust tips right here. Now you do have one pipe that goes to the back, but it does split. It is two mufflers and two exhaust tips. And those guys, this is all real right here. Nothing about this is fake. So I'm actually ultimately pretty okay with it. And because this Buick is so big, it does actually provide quite a lot of space. Of course, it's a power opening tailgate, because why not? And when you open it, it reveals 23 cubic feet of space. Pretty darn good for a 3-row SUV. And you do have a bit more space underneath the floor right here. And beneath that, under here, if you remove these screws right here, you do actually have an 18-inch spare tire under here. We do have these chrome and conveniently located mounts right here to help tie things down, and a cigarette plug style electric port right there. Because this is an Avenir, standard equipment is power folding 3rd and 2nd row seats. This is an option on the Preferred and Sport Touring trims, but standard here. Now, they are not one-touch buttons, but they are buttons, and once you fold them both down, you have 57 cubic feet of storage and a not perfectly but pretty darn flat loading floor right here. It's also fairly wide, so both of those things are nice to see. And if you need more space than this, it is still touch of a button easy. Press these 2 buttons, and the 2nd row folds flat to give you 98 cubic feet of storage and room for you and a passenger. Yeah, it's all pretty nice. And I'm sure plenty of room for my bike, but let's find out. I mean, yeah, very easy. Plenty of room lengthwise, plenty of room widthwise. My bike fits with no problem at all. All right, let's check out the inside. First thing I'm going to do actually is start the car, because there's some things to show you in the 2nd row with it running. Push button starts right here. And with all the seats back up, you can see the different controls on the seats. You adjust the seats fore aft manually with this lever right here. Having them all the way back blocks the 3rd row from folding down, so I'm going to have them up a bit. This one folds the seat down manually. And this one, if you give it a firm press, is what pushes the seat out of the way to access the 3rd row. Now, you can seat 3 in the 3rd row. This is a 7-passenger car, and it is not terribly comfortable for adults, but I have seen worse. Oof. I am 5 feet 11 inches or 181 centimeters tall, and I have about negative an inch of knee room. I'm firmly pressed against the seat back here. If I kind of go wide there, I have room. I do have headroom, and I do have actually not that terrible amounts of thigh support considering this. You definitely would not want to put 3 adults back here, and my knees are definitely bent more than 90 degrees. That said, I do have a USB Type-C charge port right here and a couple of cup holders. That's enough back here. The 2nd row, as you can see, is much more comfortable. We do have captain chairs here. We do have our own personal armrest right here. And we have a 3rd zone of climate control, hence why I wanted to start the car. I am still 5 feet 11 inches or 181 centimeters tall, and now I have a good 3 inches of knee room. And remember, I did move this seat up a few positions before I even sat down, and I do have headroom, and I do have good thigh support as well. Seat bottoms are nice and high, so this is a very comfortable place to be. Put all that together and I have less than a 90-degree bend in my knees. I also have this nice beautiful blue and what feels like real wood right here, and then a nice beige beneath that. We do also have a Bose 16 speaker stereo system in this car. Buick Enclaves get a Bose sound system as stock. That is standard equipment, but the Preferred and the Sport Touring get a 12 speaker system. The Avenir gets a 16 speaker system. The Avenir also gets heated seats for the second row on both sides, and beneath that you have 2 more USB Type-C charge ports and AC power. Beneath that, you have a nice little shelf to store stuff and some cup holders right there, all very lovely. And despite having a panoramic moonroof, I still have plenty of headroom and a vanity light too. Here's another look at the nice two-tone interior color with what looks like, again, real wood to me. You have this nice polished metal piece that blends into the door handles right there. We do have 2-position seat memory for the driver's seat and some other controls right there. Usual controls on the door there. And here's another way to open and close your power liftgate. This is a Buick, so we do have what looks like carpeting for the floor mats down there, but it is all generally plush and nice for sure. You do have power adjustable seats right there, but this is not lumbar, or not just lumbar anyway. This is a seat massager. The Buick Avenir gets heated seats, ventilated seats, and seat massage. Buick calls this a floating console, this lower center console here, where you get the upper shelf right here, and it does end right before the end here, so it's not connected. It's like it's cantilevered out from the base here, and then down here you just have a nice big wide shelf, and that does include another cigarette plug style electric port right there. You do get several controls to the left of the steering. I'll go over what those are in just a moment, and you can both electrically adjust both the tilt and telescope of the steering right there. You get a nice and thick steering wheel rim in the Enclave. Grips really well, and you do have this set of lights right at the top of the wheel and this little sensor right here, because this Buick is optioned with Super Cruise, and that's what those buttons are for. You do also have plenty of cruise control options to the left of the steering. There's your Super Cruise on off, for example, and more controls to the right, including a heated steering wheel. And the heated steering wheel is standard equipment on the Buick Enclave. You do also have shift paddles, upshift on the right, downshift on the left. The controls to the left of your steering, this is really interesting. Electric park brake. These are your drive modes right here. Here's your auto hold if you're on a decline and you want to hold the car. This is your all-wheel drive button. By push of a button, you can change from front to all-wheel drive. It's not automatic. They give the drivers control there. I find that really interesting and in a lot of ways really nice. Here's your auto start stop button right here, and then the brightness adjustment for the lights, the ambient lighting in here. But the main show here is this widescreen 30-inch curved display, which functions as both the digital instrument cluster and the center display. This is a beautiful, elegant screen that just pops up from the base of the dash here. It's narrow, and I think it's integrated into the design really well. If you press this button down here, you can also adjust what you see on the digital instrument cluster. You can either have this instrument cluster look or the driver assist screen. And you can also have Google Maps display on here as well. And because this is an Avenir, we also have a head-up display. This is optional on the other trims, but standard here. On the center display, there are a lot of controls here, of course, but one I wanted to show you is vehicle status, because this gives you a nice, really easy way to look at a bunch of different things. Maintenance schedule, how is everything holding up in terms of wearable items, a bunch of different gauges. You can see how the car is performing at the moment. Trip information, you can look at it on the center display right here. And finally, air quality. I have good air quality. How about that? Standard across the board is wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto, and a wireless smartphone charger right down there. Your Prindle is actually part of the console right here. Push button for park, push toward you and up to put it in reverse, toward you and down to put it in drive. And when you put it in reverse or drive, the camera system automatically lights up, and as you can see, you have a lot of different options of what to look at. You also, built into the center display, have Google built in, which means you get Google Assistant, Google Play Store, and Google Maps. Google Assistant is especially nice. You can access it really easily just by pressing this button. set the temperature to 72 degrees.
Sure, changing the temperature to 72 degrees.
It hears you clearly and it works quickly. I really appreciate that. At the base of the screen, you can see the first 2 zones of our 3-zone climate control, and you can see I can just touch the screen to make adjustments here. Heated seat, ventilated seats off, but I do also have physical buttons just beneath that if you prefer to adjust things that way. And if you do adjust the temperature, you can easily press it and tell it to sync. Beneath that, I have vents, and tucked down here, I do have another USB Type-C and a USB Type-A port right there. Beneath that, this is your power button and volume knob for the stereo controls. That's just above this small tray right here. And beneath that, a couple of nice big and deep cup holders. Past that, we do have plenty of storage in our lower center console with a removable tray right here. And yes, its own little light down there. It goes pretty deep, almost to my elbow. Looking up, we do have controls for the panoramic moonroof, including sliding it open, tilting it up, and electrically controlling the privacy panel. Lovely. We do also have a glasses holder right behind that. The panoramic moonroof is standard on the Avenir, optional on the other trims. Oh, and if your rear view is blocked in any way, you can just flip this and get the rear view camera instead. This functions as a screen. Of course, during the day, it's really hard to tell right now, but we do also have lovely ambient lighting in the Buick. Here, let me show you in the dark. All right, let's talk drive modes. In a way, there's an extra drive mode in the sense that you can turn on and off all-wheel drive at the push of a button. I do very much appreciate that. As you can see, we are currently in 2-wheel drive. I'm pressing that all-wheel drive button. All-wheel drive. But right next to that, we do have the drive mode controller right here. I start toggling through that. You'll see that we have touring, sport, snow and ice, and off-road modes. And this Avenir Enclave does have adaptive shock absorbers. So there is a real difference in the handling feel of this car between touring and sport, not just powertrain controls. That's nice to have. So there you have it. The 2025 third generation Buick Enclave. It's big, it's beautiful, and it's pretty darn clever inside. I'm Robin Warner. Thank you very much for watching.